the clash between how introverted feeling and extroverted feeling work in relationships is both fascinating and terrifying. And I reckon that it is more important than knowing love languages. My wife is an ENFJ, I'm an INFP, and I've noticed that the reason that most people struggle in relationships and most of our conflicts have come from us feeling in a different way than the other person. So in this video, we're going to talk about why that's important, and I'm going to go through these 5 different sections: authenticity and space, quiet reflection, proactive care and support, external expectations, and conflict handling. And it's important to understand how all of these are working together so that you have a more rounded and fleshed out understanding of how feeling is working. So if you are an FP, you are using introverted feeling. If you are an FJ, you're using extroverted feeling. If you're a TJ, you are using introverted feeling. And if you are a TP, you are using extroverted feeling. So we should probably break that down a little bit. Feeling is a judging function. It's a way of making decisions, and it's an evaluative function based off how it impacts people, the human component, the values, what other people feel is good or is bad. Is this thing important to us? Do we like this? And if it's introverted feeling, it is, do I like this? What I call the soul introverted feeling is checking, does this resonate with me, my conscience, my identity? Is this aligned with who I am, what I want to become, and what I want to do in the world? Extroverted feeling is the offensive version of that. It's proactive. It's checking with other people and saying, do we like this? Does this resonate with us? And I call it the envoy. It's this ambassador-like part of yourself that is about unifying, about bringing people together, about assessing, is this a good thing? Checking, guys, do we like this? Do we not like this? Is this group with us? Are they against us? And again, it's more proactive, where introverted feeling, the soul, is more defensive, single target, single focus, where the offensive extroverted functions are explosive, breadth, expansive, AOE style, healing. One thing that introverted feeling is really good at is creating space for the other person to be themselves. We love listening. And you might ask my wife or my mom, and they'll be like, you never listen. We love listening for identity, listening for who that person is, trying to understand their intentions. Authenticity, being yourself, and space, as in creating space and holding space for the other person to be themselves, to act as their authentic self. We need that space. We need to be accepted for who we are. And that is one of the biggest complaints that a lot of INFPs have, is like, we want to feel appreciated and honored and respected for who we are as people. If it's a job, we want to know that the job needs us, that we're not just a number. And if it's a relationship, we need to know that it is us who is with the person, and that we have a special thing. We're a special snowflake in some way, and that the other person wants that and needs that from us. And that might be a high expectation for many people, but it is something that just deep down kind of drives us for how we act in a relationship. But authenticity in space is not enough. We need quiet reflection time. We need time to separate ourselves and consider what is happening and sift through all of these emotions. It's not just opening space for the other person to be themselves. And the problem with that is that a lot of times we give too much space, or we want to give too much space, and we want so much space ourselves. One of the biggest mistakes that comes with that is over expectations of how much space to give another person. As an FP, I know I've let the slack go way too loose many times, or the other person thinking that I want too much slack, when really I feel like I need more. Like I just need a little bit more time, a little bit more space to be myself, to understand how I feel about a thing. and then to likely share it, hopefully share it. A lot of FPs expect that the other person goes through their thoughts and feelings and emotions by themselves. It's like you figure it out yourself, because that's what I would want to do. Sometimes I do want to talk about it, but usually I don't. And that is something that oftentimes is a miscommunication within FJ and FP relationships. What I recommend is to notice when you are expecting the other person to give you more space as an FP and ask for it. Communicate it. And I know that might sound like a mind-blowing idea, but asking for other people to treat you in the way that you want to be treated is really important. Other people, if you're dealing with an FJ in the relationship, they probably don't want that much space. They want you to proactively do the FE ambassador envoy type thing and go up to them and be like, are you okay? Do you want to do this together? It might be fun. That goes a long way in showing support in the way that the other person wants it. And when you do this enough, you learn the other person's style and you can appreciate it more, because they're both good. They both have benefits. Believe it or not, whether you feel that way or not within your psyche, we have a lot of baggage attached to all these different cognitive functions and expectations as well. Finding a way to communicate to the other person in a way that honors their personality type is the key to awesome relationships, awesome communication, a better career, better self-understanding. There's so many levels that just comes from understanding how people use their cognitive functions or their questing party within their psyche. See, quiet reflection is that time that we need to sort through our feelings, our thoughts, our emotions. Why did we do this? How do I feel about this? Is this aligned with me? What about that did I not like? And those kind of questions are extremely important for FPs, because it does lead to allowing us to be ourselves if we have introspected enough that we understand every niche and cranny of our identity, which unfortunately is never going to happen, but it's a fun thing to try to approach anyway. The myth here is that FIs are emotionally distant. But really, we just need a lot of time for quiet reflection. And likely the FJs, again, want to close the gap, want to be more proactive, and talk it out, because that's how they do emotions and feelings. That's how they understand themselves as well as the other person, is by expressing it and having this back and forth conversation about it, so that they're getting their values out into the world. They're extroverting their feeling, as opposed to introverted feeling, which is going through internally to understand it. And I've heard so many comments and people emailing me saying like, my INFP is really distant right now and I don't know what to do. And unfortunately, I can't tell you if it's the end or if they just need some time to process. Because a lot of us INFPs, we don't express that. And that is something that honestly we need to get better at, is expressing that I just need some time to think about this, and then actually communicating properly when we've made a decision. And hopefully we do make a decision. I know it can take a long time to make any decision, but that is something that would help other people in relationships, especially the FJs. Why is it that some people seem constantly concerned about other people's opinions and perceptions? Well, extroverted feeling is very focused on other people. How do we feel about this, right? It's about the culture, the community, the group. And if there's no sense of the external expectations, there's a lot of doubt within the FJ. FPs, we can be concerned with it, but oftentimes we're more concerned with ourselves. We're very self-focused. And because of that, it's not as big of a deal. But the FJs need to have this conversation with other people. They need to go peopling. They need to ask, like, this thing happened. How do you feel about that? They might not be that direct with it, but they'll bring up a topic, and hopefully that back and forth helps them understand if they are good, if they're right in their thought process. And one thing that I've noticed is that FJs typically don't know how they feel about a thing until they've expressed it or they've talked about it. And then after seeing it within the other person or after having it within mental space, I guess, or heart space, then they get to take it in and be like, oh, now I know how I feel about it. But it takes some time and it takes that expressive energy. And that is opposite from how many FPs do it, right? FPs want to isolate ourselves. We want to go for a walk in the forest or something like that. Look at the animals and reflect over how do we feel about this thing. But it's a different approach, and that causes conflict. And it can be a good thing because they're both necessary. If you don't know why the other person's doing it, or you expect them to do it like you do it, then it's going to cause problems. And I say it's both necessary because FPs should check in with other people and see, maybe we're misaligned. Maybe internally we just never had that experience or that insight that allowed us to reflect over, is this a good thing or a bad thing? We might have thought we did it, but it's happened many times in my life where I did something just kind of thinking it was funny or whatever. And then after having a little conversation with them, I was like, wow, that was actually really mean. And it didn't even hit me. So that's an important thing to do. And FJs need to also stop and introspect and get some quiet reflection time as well to understand themselves. And now, is it your main mode of interaction with the world? No, but it's still important. How do these different processing styles impact conflict and conflict management, conflict handling in a relationship? Well, I've noticed from my experiences that one of the biggest problems is I want to reflect again internally, and my wife wants to talk about it. And when she's talking about it, I'm still trying to reflect internally, and it doesn't align. And there's a need on both sides to express things if you want to handle any conflict, right? Unfortunately, we can't just do it in the inner world and expect that everything is okay. I know this might sound really weird, but like if you think of somebody that you really hate, they might be here in mental space. And if you shrink them down and make them black and white, move them over here, put them down in the corner, make it dim, change their voice, give them a funny hat, your relationship to them changes internally. Now the person is still there, right? And in your relationship, when you start out, you meet somebody and they're like right here, they're shiny, they're sparkly, they're nice. You don't find any faults in them, but eventually it kind of gets moved away in mental space. Other things get layered in front of it. You're not looking forward to them as much. And I know that might sound harsh, but that is often what happens after you start adding faults and mistakes and things stack up. It's important as an internal reflective exercise to readjust them, to move them, to adjust the submodalities, which is the little differences that make the difference within the representation. How big are they? How bright are they? How vivid? Are they smiling? Is it a movie? If you adjust that, you can have a different relationship with them. That being said, you still should interact with the actual person, because you can do stuff in your head all day and the person hasn't done that stuff. So it might change how you interact with them, but they're still a part of that situation and you got to go back and forth. Does that make sense? So don't expect that the other person has the same conflict management style. Don't expect that they're going to do the same stuff that you want to do, because that's not how it works. That's not how people work. And again, if you can use your knowledge of personality type to adapt your interaction, to speak the same language as them, you can smooth out relationships, you can smooth out conflicts, you can understand why the person does that thing that you always thought was strange. And then you can appreciate that. And you can give them the authentic space that would help them. And you can also communicate it and communicate what you want in the relationship too. Understanding the differences between introverted feeling, FI, the soul, and extroverted feeling, FE, the envoy, is key not just for avoiding conflicts, but for creating a nice relationship and improving it in meaningful ways. And if you want to know more about how introverted feeling works and how extroverted feeling works, you can check out these videos over here so you can get a deeper understanding, and not just in a relationship, but what is actually going on within the psyche of the user of that cognitive function. Good luck, have fun. Peace.